Please welcome Shantae Russell, AFCEA's Vice President for Membership, to the podium.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Last session of the day, we made it. And it's going to be one of the best ones. So as you know, I'm Shantae Russell, Vice President of Membership at AFCEA International, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's panel, brought to you by the AFCEA IDEA Program. Our focus today is leveraging inclusivity in cybersecurity. As AFCEA membership continues to grow, so does our commitment to inclusivity. The AFCEA IDEA Program, dedicated to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, stands as a testament to our values. We aim to ensure that every voice is heard and every perspective valued. To our panelists, your presence here today underscores your support for our collective mission, and we thank you sincerely for it. To start, I would like to introduce Jason Stahl to the stage to say a few words and introduce our moderator. Jason is a Navy Marine. John is Navy Marine Corps lead for the Indo-PACOM region with our panel sponsor, Sienna. We truly appreciate Sienna's generous continued support for our IDEA efforts, along with their co-sponsor, FedData. We're very happy to have Jason with us here today.
Good afternoon. Apparently, I go by many names. I can go by John, Jason, Jeremy. Hey you. Sometimes depending on how my wife's feeling.
That's taken.
So, yeah, exactly. So sometimes I have to remind myself too. So thank you, aloha, and good afternoon. I trust everyone is enjoying the TechNet Indo-Pacific Conference and learning new ways in which we can support our forward forces, allies, and partners. I'm Jason Stahl with Sienna Government Solutions, and I am proud to say that Sienna has supported women in AFCEA and the IDEA program through sponsorships as it directly aligns with our people promise at Sienna to create an environment where everyone is empowered and valued. I'm excited to help kick off this amazing panel discussion. So with that said, mahalo and thank you for attending today's panel hosted by the AFCEA IDEA program, Leveraging Inclusivity in Cybersecurity. I'd like to introduce the moderator for today's panel, Michael Cardenas. Michael is a security professional and project manager with over 22 years of experience managing large-scale enterprise cybersecurity and digital modernization projects. As the Chief Technology Officer of MC3 Technologies, he oversees the company's technology strategy and vision while providing leadership to the technology team. Michael has a history of working with government and industry partners to deliver modern, secure, and sustainable digital solutions. Michael will introduce our panelists and moderate the discussion, so please join me in a warm welcome for Michael Cardenas.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Aloha, everyone. We're the only thing between everyone and all the wonderful receptions coming after this. So thank you for being here. We're looking forward to this great conversation we're going to have today. We'll be talking today about leveraging inclusivity in cybersecurity. But first and foremost, a big mahalo to our panelists. Just an esteemed group of individuals here, and we're just so thankful for their attendance. And to AFCEA International and Ms. Shantae Russell, for putting on this event today. So as we know, today it's a very fast-paced tech industry. We look around downstairs, a lot of products, a lot of really cool tools. But at the end of the day, what are we doing, right? We have to build a workforce that is capable of delivering these tools and these capabilities to support the mission, right? So more than ever here in Indo-Pacific, it's important for that we embrace diversity, diverse perspectives, and fostering this inclusive environment and building a culture that is key to driving innovation, resilience, and optimizing organizational performance. So without further ado, I'm going to get into introductions of the panel and try not to go too long on this. These folks have amazing credentials, and I could probably go on for about an hour just speaking about that. But we'll start off here with Rear Admiral retired Will Metz, a native of Danville, Georgia, and a graduate of Savannah State University. As CEO of Metz Consulting Enterprise, Admiral Metz brings a wealth of experience from his distinguished naval career. He has held key positions such as Director for Intelligence at the United States Pacific Command and Deputy Director of Tailored Access Operations at the National Security Agency. His operational assignments include deployments with the USS Thomas C. Hart and USS Harry S. Truman, showcasing his expertise in both surface warfare and information operations.
Who is that person? Thanks, Michael.
You're welcome. Our next panelist is Dr. Kekai Nema'u, Chief Executive Officer of Nema'u Technical and Industrial, NTI. Dr. Nema'u is a retired Air Force veteran and a cybersecurity expert with extensive experience across military, industry, and government sectors. His career highlights include leading global operations in defensive and offensive cyber operations for the Department of Defense, and being a distinguished graduate of the Air Force's Cyber Warfare Weapons Systems School, with a terminal degree in business administration and 29 industry-recognized certifications. Seriously? Dr. Nema'u exemplifies leadership and technical acumen in both cybersecurity and business. As a native Hawaiian, he is a passionate advocate for promoting diversity and inclusion within the cybersecurity industry. Welcome, Dr. K.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Emma Sharrock, the change leader at Agile Enterprises and head of the Culture First project. Emma brings over 20 years of experience in project delivery and change management across various industries, including telecommunications, government, financial services, and media in Australia and in the UK. Notably, Emma started her career as a maritime warfare officer in the Royal Australian Navy, which has laid the foundation for her expertise in navigating complex environments and leading high-performance teams. A certified Gallup Strengths Coach, and author of 2 books on agile project management and executive leadership, Emma excels in coaching leaders and teams to embrace agile methodologies and high-performance practices. Amazing. Welcome, Emma.
Thank you.
Last but not least, we have Mr. Richard Yu, the Director of Digital Superiority Director at J6 and the Chief Information Officer for the United States Space Command. Richard ensures the robustness of command and control communications and computer systems, spearheading the integration of artificial intelligence and machine learning technologies into the command's operations. With over 33 years of operational and acquisition experience across various government agencies, he has been pivotal in maintaining and advancing the United States Space Command's digital superiority. His leadership in digital strategy and cybersecurity is instrumental in managing cyber risk and cryptographic modernization for the Space Command mission systems.
Thank you for the
Amazing.
kind words.
Thank you all for being here. All right, we're lucky to have such a remarkable group, and we're looking forward to hearing more about how they navigate inclusivity and diversity in the organization. So let's dive right in. We'll open this up to the group. Inclusivity can manifest in various ways within leadership and organizational culture. How do each of you define inclusivity in your leadership approach? And what impact have you observed it having on your teams and your organizations? And we'll start off here with you.
Oh, you want?
Yes.
Well, first of all, aloha. Thanks to AFCEA, thanks to Sienna. It's, I think it's unique that it brings us here today to talk about, first of all, the strategic imperative. The strategic imperative is we know as a nation to be able to compete on the global scale, we must have talent from across the board, independent of race, independence of gender, independence of disability. Everyone contributes. So I would say my key emphasis point throughout my career is one, that representation matters. I think most of us here on this panel have, it's been a series of firsts. So Emma was probably one of the first women on Australian destroyers. Mr. Yu, perhaps one of the first senior leaders in space domain, and obviously the youngsters to my right and left, Michael and Kakai, the idea has been a series of firsts. But what happens is, by virtue of being a series of firsts, those individuals that you look to be the next generation of leaders must look up and say, that person, Michael, looks like me. That person, Michael, has been successful. Therefore, I can be successful, independent of background. Hopefully that helps, Michael.
Yeah.
Doctor?
For me, I think you touched on gender, race. Those are the typical traditional perspectives when we're talking about inclusivity. I think some of the things we need to address, and definitely in my organization, we keep an eye on and make sure we don't overlook, is economic disadvantage, social disadvantage. So I think just mainly making sure that the hot topics, the traditional approach and frameworks are looked after, but also the non-traditional. That's how we do it.
Thank you, Kakai. Emma?
I really love those answers. When I thought about this, I thought a bit more broadly of inclusivity for me means that feeling that you belong. And often you can have inclusion policies and, ticking boxes for hiring all these different types of people, but you may still have a sense of not belonging. And I think inclusivity to me is often recognized more by its absence than its presence. And I think we all have felt that at times of it being absent. So for me, it's really understanding, do people feel like they belong, really? And do they feel safe to be able to say, I don't belong, there aren't a lot of people here like me, so how do we create a workforce where they do feel that way? That's where my thinking goes.
Thank you, Emma.
Wow, that's great panel members, and they've said everything, so I'm going to say, any questions? No, I'm just kidding. So let me touch on a couple of things that you all have already said. Amara have said that we're standing on the shoulders of a lot of people who came before us. I reminded that recently, I think I heard it from this week on NPR that the lastest of the Marine whisperer of the World War II, the decoder, I think, have died. Can you imagine that this America back in the 40s included our Native Americans as part of the co-walkers to be able to break the code. They were just speaking the language. But opposite them were Japanese who are very homogenous, as you may already know, and who did not know how to crack that code. It is that greatness that we're seeking even today. It started way before 1940s for that as well. So that was pretty cool. And then I remember that movie of the co-worker where I think it was, I forgot his name, the main person who actually risked his life to go save one of the co-workers. And that speaks to Ms. Emma's point about it's not just the trust, but the confidence that people show us, all of us, to have that trust, to be able to rely on each other for the work, so that trust breeds ingenuity, it breeds the maximization of our ability to contribute. And there's a lot of people who came before us to create that environment and trust, and then we just need to follow through. So thank you for your insights.
Thank you. I can't agree more. I think it's that feeling of of belonging, of feeling comfortable, so that you can then work together to innovate and then move quickly, is so critical. And I think as a senior leader in our organizations, it's so important for us to focus on that and kind of create that environment. Thank you all. We'll dive into this next question. Inclusivity often presents different challenges across sectors like government, military, industry, and academia. can you all share some examples of how these challenges have manifested themselves within your organizations and how people can effectively address them? And start off with you, Richard.
Oh,
Yeah. Let's put you on the spot.
thank you. Okay, good. So I'm not sure you all know that from the government perspective, when we make hiring of our GSs and what have you, we have to now have to go through a course of let's see, what's that right word? Micro biases, so to help us recognize in ourselves some of the biases. All of us are humans, so all of us have biases, right? If you give me a choice between cheeseburger and Chinese food, I'll probably take Chinese food. Just so you know. But that being said, there are some of the things that the training makes you go through. Like, for example, close your eyes and imagine a doctor. Who do you see? Tell me about the person, the color, and so forth and so on. Those are biases. So those biases are, all of us. And in the U.S. Air Force, for example, Department of the Air Force has worked tirelessly trying to help us identify, and then help us be educated, and help us not do those things. And I'll challenge all of us to think through that as well. So anyway, that's one put I would offer for consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Does any of our panelists have anything to add?
Go for it.
Go for it. I can see
Emma's
you
winding
thinking
up.
about it. Yeah.
Oh, I guess I just wanted to go back to what Will said before about creating workplaces where there are people like us there. So I find, having worked across a number of different industries, sometimes those similar kind of feeling is there, those unconscious bias that exist. But I think in every industry there's almost like an avatar or a persona of a particular person. So you go to interview, say I'm interviewing a developer, a code developer. There's an image I have of a code developer in my head, and it's not correct, but I'm telling you, it's a guy probably wearing a t-shirt and,
Long hair.
Yeah, long hair, probably, is a gamer. So a woman walks in and I'm like, oh, and that's, I'm a woman, but it's sort of just overcoming that when you start to think about a job description, not have that set persona in your head, but to take a step back. And yeah, I mean, that's, tech, because I've worked a lot in tech recently. And I think the same could go for other industries, perhaps, that are more maybe female-dominated. You have a persona, so it's really just understanding that bias and understanding whatever industry you're in, there might be a particular way of thinking that you just need to step back from and be a bit more open. That's what came to mind when Richard spoke about that.
Right.
Thank you. I don't know if you had tried this, but I did this. People say, like, who can work in cybersecurity? And I say anyone, right? She's typing into ChatGPT, like, give me an image of a cybersecurity guy. And it always gives you the guy behind his laptop with the hoodie on.
The hoodie.
Yeah.
It's got to be a hoodie.
It's got the neon lights behind them. I was like, but, people get these images in their head like that only these people can do this, and that's not true, right? And so it's important that they see people that look like them, that talk like them, that come from the places that they come from. That's so important, right?
Right. As a matter of fact, if I could, this is to be interactive between the panelists and the audience. So fortunately, this week at AFCEA, I've been able to meet what I would characterize as new best friends. I actually had an opportunity to meet my new best friend, Kat, recently. And we were, I think the conversation was about what is necessary in the nation to be able to address the threats in cyberspace. What is necessary in the nation to be able to leverage this emerging technology to continue to be a leader. And I think, hopefully you don't mind this, Kat. So we had a conversation and I said, yeah, so talk to me about your background and experience, because meeting Kat, I said, I was essentially blown away, and I said, this person can achieve anything she wants to achieve, personally, professionally, and in a representative way. So we talked about the shared challenges that we'd experienced throughout our careers, right, Kat? And fortunately, we talked about the fact that, well, in my government experience, when the government recognizes a deficiency in, let's just call it a deficiency in representation, professionalism, et cetera, the government is typically good about implementing policy to move organizations along that culturally they would choose not to do so. As one example. The second example was about private industry. And we talked about our shared experiences in private industry. And fortunately for me, I actually, this is not a paid political announcement for Amazon Web Services. But I actually talked about the fact that my personal experience at Amazon was you come into this culture that is completely different than what I experienced in government for a career. You come in this culture that actually, as the world's largest startup, had started as a group of, young Caucasian males that grew it exponentially over time. And in principle, with that growth, it kind of gets to Emma's point that Amazon can continue to be successful if the people that we attract, recruit, and retain, we would call are Amazonian-like. And the point becomes, whether good, bad, or indifferent, for a period of time, it was, hey, Seattle, we were successful. We need the type of people that existed in Seattle, but in a short period of time, this company that literally became the world's largest startup realized the fact that to be the world's most customer-centric company, you would have to embrace all of our cultures. You would have to embrace all of our ethnicities. And it was uniquely interesting after people would say George Floyd, the death of George Floyd, and the Black Lives Matter movement, that in this case, the leadership in the company recognized that over a period of time, the unconscious bias was we wanted Amazonians, and that corporately we were not doing as well as we could for attracting diverse and inclusive candidates. So it was a deliberate decision to say, we're going to work hard at improving that. And surprisingly, you know, as a relatively mature Amazonian and having to walk into a new headquarters building in Arlington, Virginia, you walk in and amazingly you see that representation which looks like America. So that is the compare and contrast between government and private industry. Can we have audience participation?
Oh, of course. I believe there's
So-
a email here, askmeindopac@gmail.com. Please.
So
please send us
Kat, bring it.
One of the key things that really drew me to this panel is understanding the panel's perspective on not just diversity in some of the areas that you described, but I think something that really underpins all of that, which is diversity of thought. Now, this will become increasingly more important, and Mr. Yu, actually, I think everybody in this room could take a shot every time you hear the word AI, right? So, in that vein, I am very worried that while we all make a collective effort to see more in support of diversity of thought in various ways that can manifest itself, not only in public but in private sector too. AI is trained on highly biased data, and as you oversee AI in your remit, I'd be really curious to understand how you are mitigating that bias to ensure that Space Command becomes the organization you want it to be in the future.
Wow, that's a good question. In fact, I will add to diversity of thoughts with the diversity of experiences, diversity of perspectives, and so forth. And I reminded also, I'm an NPR junkie. I'm reminded past decade or so, there were a lot of discussions about how some of the medical standards about administering medicines and so forth were created by the sample size that are not very diversified, for example. So we're very keenly aware of that. In fact, AI ML, I've been working with the AI for a long time, 30 some years, and it was an interesting article. The first time I kind of ran across was back in 1980s when MIT had this experiment of robots in a ring that taught them how to pick up amongst all the different colors blue marbles, if you will. And each robot went around to pick up, red, well, nope, throw it away. White, throw it away. Blue, okay, we'll take it. What was uniquely interesting back then, it is now as well, is that each of the robots learned differently because their experiences were different. They did not pick up the same color at the same time and throw that away for the blue. So that underpins what underpins the AI or any automation, for that matter. Not even AI or ML, but automation with a large number of codes. There are intrinsic behaviors, whether it's bias or not, behaviors that are not predictable. Have you guys read the news about the Tesla self-driving? Initially, kind of were gravitating towards blinking lights and killing some people. Now, I'm venture to say Tesla did not intend for that to happen, but it did, and it wasn't AI. It was a large number of codes. So to answer your question, I would say this: we need to know what we're buying. We need to know how these large number of codes or AI, ML, or what have you, we need to understand the behaviors associated with it. And we need to understand the behavior of the data. Because there are two parts of biases. Their data may be biased. Going back to my original question about the sample size was bias for some of the standards of medical standards. And the AI code itself may be biased, because it was designed that way. So our job number one, which is consistent with the DoD CDAO's perspective as well, is that let's first understand the biases, preferences, whatever you want to call it, of the data and the codes themselves, AI, ML, or large codes, so that we can understand and be able to anticipate those. Now, I know that that's not necessarily the focus of our panel here, but it's biases nevertheless. So anyway, thank you for that question.
All right, thank you so much. So I have a next question. So as we talk about diversity and recruiting and representation within our companies, it brings up another topic of recruiting and retaining talent, especially diverse talent, right? So I want to direct this next question to Kekai. What are some strategies or initiatives that you have seen be successful in recruiting and retaining diverse talent, especially in leadership roles? Can you share examples of programs or practices that have made a significant difference for you as a small business owner?
Yeah. So, in the spirit of audience participation, I lucked out, and right behind Kat is Keone. So, actually, we're a Native Hawaiian organization-owned 8A. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that program.
Mm-hmm.
And our NHO actually started the first IT project management apprenticeship that was approved by the Department of Labor for the state of Hawaii. And Keone was in a different program, but cybersecurity program, but part of that internship in those cohorts nonetheless. And if you wouldn't mind sharing your story, where you come from, and why that was such a big deal, and where it got you now, for the audience.
West Side.
Yeah, and with no disparagement, but there aren't too many kids in Nanakuli working, in cybersecurity jobs, and even view that as a career path for them. And so Keone, now he gives back. He's you're teaching in Nanakuli High, not as a teacher, but you do boot camps and little seminars and workshops for them. So, I forgot who said it, but it's Emma said it. What is your idea of a cybersecurity guy, working at Pearl Harbor? In most cases, you think a retired military, not, a local boy from Nanakuli that kind of, got a chance. So I think, to go back to the question, it's really utilizing programs that work in other trades and industries, and not being biased to think that our industry, IT, cybersecurity, whatever you want to call it, cyber, is any different. And we need to leverage those kind of programs and be creative and innovative with them.
Let me also add, my hat's off to AFCEA. Just down the hall there, you got some middle school kids and high school kids of different perspectives competing in a lot of different very tech-savvy type of things. It starts there, if we can. I mean, we're really messed up if we have to go canvass the colleges without understanding the pipeline that needs to be established. That pipeline that's established, hopefully from home, all the way through the K through 12 to the colleges, to be able to expose folks, any folks, to the possibilities, so that they can actually actively choose. But on top of that, to answer your question also, is that we have other means within the Department of the Air Force, and that's across the DoD, other incentives and capabilities to be able to attract these young folks, to insert them into the pipeline so that we can have them as part of our people to work these things instead of just waiting for something magical to happen. And so that goes back to what I've said earlier. We stand on the shoulders of a lot of great people.
As a matter of fact, could I expand?
Yes,
Michael?
please.
So these discussions are only good if at the conclusion of the discussion, we all take away an opportunity to contribute. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So as Richard alluded to, well done to AFCEA, Hawaii, for creating this space for our next generation of leaders to be exposed to STEM education and the application of that to the future workforce. Well done, AFCEA, Hawaii.
Well done.
My good friend, Mr. Colonel, retired Mike Black from AFCEA International. We actually had this conversation during the recent Billington Cybersecurity Summit. So for those of us, Kama'aina, you say Billington, and they say, who is that? What the hell is that? And where is that? But the discussion was, how do we create connective tissue between the goals and objectives of Washington, D.C., with the opportunities to build pipeline to achieve those goals and objectives locally. And I said, what an opportunity here this week in this place we call home, that we take away an opportunity for AFCEA International, given the breadth of your platform, to be able to connect with government, academia, private industry, to create an approach that realizes the strategic objective of the President's National Cyber Director. Now, that would be really cool if, when we come back for TechNet Indo-Pacific, and we say, what have we done to be able to contribute to that goal? So I actually said to my good friend, Colonel Retired Black, I said, yeah, this will be our challenge. This will be our takeaway from this TechNet, to be able to take the combination of approaches to leverage the platform that exists to attract, retain, and grow our brothers and sisters from Hawaii, but not only Hawaii, but from elsewhere, to be able to achieve that objective. So I would assume action taken. Colonel Black. Excellent. Drop the mic. We can move on.
I don't know how to follow that up. This is amazing. I love this panel. This is one of the things that I'm carrying on this little ghost thing, and I got this from the STEM room down the way. And I was talking to, she was a sophomore in high school, and she created this in Tinkercad on her own, and I thought that was great. Then she found the printer that actually was a conveyor belt. Now she's printing hundreds of these. She's printing them all day. And I'm thinking, like, this is a sophomore in high school, and just so much ingenuity, so much drive, and so much passion. And you ask some of these kids, especially the ones down at the Capture the Flag event, like, where do you see yourself after this? Like, well, I don't know. Like, well, do you see yourself in cybersecurity? They're like, well, I don't know how to get there. Some of them don't want to go to college, or they can't go to college, and they don't necessarily want to go to the military, right? Which is how I got here. So it's about, how do we come together as industry, as government, and academia? How do we create these alternative pathways for them to see themselves in these professions? How do we bring them to the table so that they can actually participate and work here, right? And live here in this one of the most expensive places in the U.S. Without living out with their parents, because they don't want to do that, right? But that's what I would like to see. That's something that we're passionate about. I know the rest of this panel is very passionate about, like, how do we create more tech and IT, intelligence professionals quicker. So, yeah, can't say it better myself. Which brings me to another question, and it's more about culture. Sure, you guys walk down the street here in Hawaii, you see lots of different ethnicities, lots of different cultures coming together, and we all live very cohesively here, and we've come to, accept and love this as the Aloha spirit, right? But wherever you go in the Pacific, it's very similar, but there's very fine details, fine differences between every location throughout the Pacific. And so it's to say, like, not everything is the same. And so in terms of culture, what role does cultural competence play in fostering collaboration across teams and organizations? How can we cultivate this, right? How can we cultivate this diversity and see that into our organizations? And maybe Emma, you have some thoughts on that?
You're going to start? Yeah. Right. I guess simply because I'm cognizant of time is, I guess I would ask you, Michael, one of the benefits of military service is you're naturally exposed to people from around the globe, different cultures, and through all of that, you become a cohesive force focused on a principal objective, which is to defend a cause greater than yourself, which, to some people they say, hey, that's not my plan. And for some reason in the military, it's like, yeah, that wasn't my plan, but it became my plan. So I would just say for this discussion, it becomes the goal of becoming a global citizen, literally, independent of where you live, where you come from. One of the benefits of this technology called cyberspace is that it has literally made the world so much smaller. And in 40 seconds or less, I'm just going to give you a personal story. The personal story is we lived here in Hawaii for 8 years, almost 10 years. My children who grew up here, my daughter and son, we leave Hawaii, but they still call Hawaii home. My daughter gets married to her college sweetheart, And she says, I want my wedding to be at home in Hawaii. Now, the first thing I think is like, man, that's going to be expensive. My wife just says, write the check, don't worry. But independent of that, in her wedding party was her college roommate who is Indian American. One of her best friends at Penn State University who is from Shanghai, China. Her husband's best man is from Finland. And it goes on and on. Australia, the US. And the point of all of that was, by virtue of them being global citizens, they just see the world as it is. They don't see conflict. They don't see bias. So, global citizens. I talked a long time. I'm sorry. Kakai.
Good point.
Well, what's the saying? Culture eats strategy for breakfast, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And well,
Yep.
right. So, what we do in my organization is, it's. I think one of the biggest challenges is, or one of my biggest goals is to let other Hawaiian kids see themselves in me as leaders, and the future trajectory, and for that that culture to make sure that permeates through my company and the way we provide services, with that aloha spirit, regardless of where we're government contractors, all over the world. So we started a program where we have people like Keone shadowing. He right now he's with GDIT, but he was shadowing program managers and other leaders. Now he's a site lead, to not just, because not all of our executives are from Hawaii, right? But we still want to maintain that culture within the organization. So having those programs within the organization to do it in a very mindful manner, I think is very critical.
Thank you. Emma, anything to add?
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to say culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Sorry, Emma.
It's so
Let me write
important.
that down.
Yeah, I'll write that down. One of the things, it was a big initiative in Australia a few years ago, was the importance of cultural competence, and the way a lot of organisations approached it was everyone did a course. So we all ticked it to say, I've done cultural competence training. Surprisingly, it didn't really work that well. What I see, I know, I was surprised too. Where I see it working is that continuous learning. So it's that continuous awareness of the culture we're trying to create and the understanding of the different cultures we're working with. I mean, in Australia, we're kind of very isolated as well. So when we start working with another country, whether it be the US, I mean, the US is one big country with a lot going on there. So if we're going to work with Hawaii, or we're going to work with Japan or someone like that, it's understanding what is the culture there? What do we need to be aware of? How do we show respect so that we can collaborate together? And that's the goal. And that's ongoing. It never stops. And I think it's having that mindset so that we end up in a situation like Will's wedding, where everyone's just, wow, we've just got the world here and that's normal. And the more situations we create, it becomes more normal rather than, ooh, we're going to be talking to someone from a different country and it's a big deal. It's just the way things are, and we're all very aware of that, and our skill level is up to the point where we're able to deal with that. So, it's continuous.
Thank you, Emma. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh.
No?
I love the comments. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to ask you to challenge the convention. Challenge the convention. I'll give you an example. I'm from U.S. Space Command, and most things space are classified at the most highest level, for example. Our commander have challenged us, hence the challenging the convention. Why can't I share this with our allies? Instead of, well, it's always been done that way. So I would challenge the convention. Globalization is awesome. Respectful of others is also good. We can't do any of that without communicating, right? To be able to not shout at each other, or talk to each other, communicating. And that establishes trust, that establishes safety to be able to share and so forth. And there's a lot of things that's really going on well in our culture today than compared to like 10 or 20 years ago. So just continue to do that. And there's a lot of things that we should do and have to do. I would just ask you to pick one or two, maybe challenging the conventional thinking. Just do one per week, and that will start the fire, I think. Fire's already burning, so. I'm from Colorado, did I mention that?
Thank you. This was amazing comments, and the only thing I'll add to that is, we had a really great mentor, Pono Shem, who spoke about just aloha and what it means, and it means, without getting too emotional, it just means to have humility, right? To have patience and to breathe, to wait for the moment, and instead of reacting so quickly, to come to a situation humbly, hear things out, and then come to a solution to that problem very calmly and patiently, right? And I think that's something that I love about Hawaii and about our culture, is that that's how we approach a lot of things, and I want to see more of that in the world, right? So I think there's a lot the industry can offer here, and there's very unique things here in Indo-Pacific that you can bring to us, but I think just as equally we can start to work together to kind of spread this ideal, right? So in the spirit of aloha and working with everyone, I know there's some questions from the audience here. Would love to hear them. I know there's some folks, not sure how that works. Yes, sir?
My question kind of goes off of your last question. So my question is really, in terms of trying to have people from other classes and economic classes have that curiosity and want to get into cyber, like how would you want to spawn that and like help cultivate that curiosity with these other communities to help them get in? And the reason I ask that is because here in Hawaii, I've worked with some of the most diversified teams I've ever had the chance to work with, but I can't say the same thing with my time when I was in DC. A lot of those teams seemed very homogenous in their thought processes, their backgrounds, and so like, how do we, I want to be able to bring some of the stuff that I've learned here in Hawaii and be able to replicate that in other areas on the mainland.
Good question.
Connect to Mike Black's plan.
Can I address that?
Has anyone tried that?
Great. So I will say that I'm not a cyber guy. The guys like me, for example, who are not cyber professionals, perhaps, have this vision of what cyber means. Cyber it just sounds so technical, like a big giant wall. It's going to take a long time for me to understand it. But in reality, I think that there's that thing that surrounds the cyber and surrounds the other profession as well. I would just say that break it down, speak English, tell a story. I mean, cybersecurity is no different than home security, I would say. It's just in different domain, for example. Well, there I go again, use the word domain. But speak English and to be able to kind of break down those stereotypes, biases associated with what this profession is all about. And on IT, for example, I have no idea what IT stands for. But there are people who may not know that, and they think that, oh, that's a big deal. That's not good. It's communication. It goes back to how do you connect with these people who are not of your profession in a way that they can understand.
Just to follow on from what Richard said, because when you say tell a story, I was running a workshop with a colleague of mine, and there's a section on the workshop on cyber, and it goes into a lot of detail on the steps you should take. It's a very technical heavy part of the workshop, and I always sort of dread doing that bit because it's not a huge part, but it's still important and it is examinable as well. And someone said before we got into it, this cyber, this is really confusing. It's just a whole lot of jargon. And my colleague said, think about it like cybersecurity is like any other security, and what I like to think about is Yosemite National Park, right? So design of the bins there is really difficult because there's a Venn diagram with an overlap between the smartest bears and the dumbest people. So how do we get a bin that is functional so you can hold rubbish, but also keep it safe from the bears, but not make it so difficult? She said that is the challenge of cyber, and that is really what we're going to be talking about for the next hour or so, is how do we solve that problem?
Good story.
Like,
Let me borrow that.
please feel free. And everyone went, oh. I know, they're not going to have it. But I'm like, yeah, okay, you know cyber now, great. Yeah, I loved it.
Right. Good. Thank
Made it real. I loved it. Yeah.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you. Next question.
I want to clarify one thing. I do have to take a call from the Air Force CIO at 5:15, so I'm not leaving so that I don't get any more tasks for me. My question is, and you alluded to some of this for any panelist, when you are the first to do something, how do you ensure that you're not the last?
Perform.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
So, audience participation. No, I met a new good friend today, Petty Officer Green, who's in the audience, and FC a member. So, what was interesting about that, Mike, is, I kind of walk into the meeting room and I said, hey, I have a bag. Would you please let me leave it here? And they said, maybe. We'll let you do it. But I talked to Abram and I said, so, what do you do? And he says, I'm an IT in the Navy. I said, I'm in the Navy. And then I said, what brought you into the Navy? He's like, my father was in the Navy. Where are you from? I'm from Georgia. I'm from Georgia. And I think the moral of the story, and I think this is ultimately where you are going with the question, is if you are the first, it is a moral obligation for you to ensure that you create the opportunities for those, right? So that you're not the last. And I think this gets to KKI's point about his company as well. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I would add one thing too is, as there are obviously some leaders in the room, do your part. Do your part. Allow your your subordinates to get out in the community. Allow them the time. We all got jobs to do. We all got missions to look after, but allow them to take part. AFCEA, obviously a big advocate, but yeah, just allow your subordinates to be active in the community.
Thank you.
I had my analytical way, as some people know me, is trying to break down the cybersecurity problem a little bit. And this is maybe a little bit for maybe advice to FCFY on where we apply our resources. So my question is along the lines of cybersecurity, how to find where the potential opportunities are so you can invest in those places. So you collect by statistics, you collect by stories. I'm so I understand West Side, Best Side, but I also understand that it's got probably the least investment in school teachers, maybe from the state, and maybe the least inspiration at all. But that's a story, that's not a statistic. And so when organizations like ours are trying to decide, like, how do we want to affect cybersecurity or STEM programs, are there statistics related to that, maybe that thread about where we should look? Or is it really more the word of mouth part, the emotional part, know the culture, and then reflect on that piece? Because the West Side story I just told is a cultural thing, which is true of this island. We care about trying to find the right places to apply our STEM grants, for instance, or
when I was younger, I used to think that, I came up with a great idea. And then only to learn that, there are no great ideas, no new ideas, excuse me. Because all the ideas have been circulating around. And some ideas live, and some ideas work in certain times or not certain times. I would suggest, therefore, there are a lot of tools already available that we've experienced. There's a lot of politics associated with those as well, including Supreme Court judgment last year or the year before. I would say that there are a lot of tools that we can use, but none of this will matter if we're just talking about it and not doing anything about that. So I go back to my original thesis, and that is just choose to do something. You as an individual, we as a group, organization as an FCA, or Department of the Air Force or Department of Defense or what have you, choose to do something. When there's enough of it, I think we're going to hit a critical mass, and that it will continue. Just choose to do something.
I'll add to that. So you're here in Hawaii, MC3 Technologies, Shirlene and I, we take a lot of time to try to get back to the community, right? I come from Kalihi. It's not the greatest place on this island. I really didn't know I had a path to this. I didn't know I'd ever be a business owner. I didn't know we'd be successful. I didn't know any of this was possible. But it was through some really coincidental things that happened in my life that I got pushed towards the Air Force. My dad bought me my first computer. I met certain people that said cybersecurity is this next great thing back in 2001, right? And just these mentors who just kind of pushed us forward and gave to us their time that they didn't necessarily have to give to us. And that pushed us to where we are today. But as we sit in this position, how do we avoid being the last, right? And like you said, we have to just get out into the community. We have to start to give, right? We have to start bringing in interns, right? However much time we can give to those interns, we have to start to build up programs and encourage other IT professionals or cyber professionals to try to kind of buy into our cause, right? To help us educate the next generation. I'm looking at some great leaders to my left here based in Hawaii. Got BJ Carvalho over there. We got Jake Ross. I got Greg Hester, all big proponents of the cybersecurity community here in Hawaii. And I think that we're making some pretty big impacts, but I think we need help. And I think there's a lot of people doing a lot of different things, and sometimes it's the same thing. And so how can FCA help? Maybe we can bring everyone together and talk about what everyone's doing so that we're not stepping on each other's toes, and we can build a true pathway to a cybersecurity profession. And that's what I would like to see as a call to action from this group, this meeting, and this meeting of the minds. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to next year where we might be. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right.
There we go.
Yeah.
That would be a good session.
Yeah.
So something about happy hour, that's what I heard. Yeah.
It was awesome.
It was great, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure with our collective access, we can see this happening with a carve-out of tickets that's specifically reserved for educational purposes or access, right? It just simply means people don't have access to these types of events or cost prohibitive. But there are enough happening in locations. I'm from the Bay Area. There's RSA, Black Hat, Las Vegas, all SCs all over the world. That could be another way for these larger organizations to give access to technology space.
Thank you.
I think this.
One more question up there.
relationship.
Oh no, there's that word again.
He said it.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, please.
So are you from the National Security Agency? Oh, okay. Oh, excellent. I guess just to, first of all, amplify your charge, it's, talk story is a good thing, and I'll keep this short. When I worked in the National Security Agency's premier computer network operations arena as the deputy director, one of our best, like literally the very best operator had been a deck seaman in the Navy. He had the aptitude. He came into this place and he became a master operator. And I think to your point, it was if someone had not given that individual the opportunity, he or she would not have realized their potential. So, one, agree with you completely. Two, from an action perspective, we want to get that integrated into Mr. Black's plan.
Yeah. He's not here to defend himself.
I love him. I'll take care of him.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes. Oh, sure. Yeah, sure.
Yep. Yep.
And then for Disapac actually is currently in the process of hiring an intern. However, the issue of that internship is comes out of budget. Instead of us being able to do 3 to 5 internships, we can only do 1. And so that's why it comes down to saying, yes, we want to use a lot of this local talent in these high areas because we would love to hire locally, especially for like a lot of these agencies because it costs a lot to have people move out here, for one. Right. And it's a totally different like pace of life. But there's no budget to make it where we can have multiple people at the same time for these internships. And that's unfortunate. That trade school idea, I've never heard of that before. I think that's actually a great idea. And that's something I'll put up my chain because I think that's something that should be more implemented instead of a 4-year path.
May I clarify? There are only a handful of GS skill sets that require positive validation of degree. Like engineering, 800 series, for example, you need to actually have a degree. Law, you have to have a degree, so forth and so on. But IT, for example, it does not have a degree requirement, period. So there is a mental block in a lot of people, both inside and outside of GS services, that think that, oh, I need to get a degree. Well, not really. If you have the experience, awesome. We're hiring J6, the U.S. Space Command. We just celebrated our 5th year anniversary 2 months ago. We're hiring like crazy, degree or not. If you're competent and can do it, you're hired. We're going through all kinds of sources to do that, and yet we're still falling short. Point number 2 is that there are a lot of, you're absolutely right. I came through what Department of the Air Force call a Palace Acquire program. I'm not sure if anybody has seen that. Palace Acquire program is a pipeline program from the Department of the Air Force to bring people, interns from college and through. And they canceled my program because it was costing a lot of money. Now, what's a lot of money? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And when I was at the Missile Defense Agency, one test cost 3-digit millions of dollars, for example. So budget dust. But our leadership may not necessarily think that way, because perhaps the Department of the Air Force is not. I apologize.
Speaking of it.
Right on time.
Sing home call, so I need to give her a call, my wife. But you're right. I think these type of things, the internship program and what have you, are kind of costly, relatively speaking, in a very small, myopic way. And we just need to be able to get through those process and get those leaders installed so that they can think more broadly and in decades instead of in months or years. So great points. Thank you.
All right, everyone. I think this could go on for hours and hours. Everyone's so passionate about this topic, and I'm so glad to have been here. But it is happy hour, and I'd like to turn it over to our host.
The good news is that we can continue the discussion just outside the doors here for happy hour. But first, to our panelists, it was great to hear your perspectives on inclusivity and what it means to you. It was great to hear your thoughts on unconscious bias and your strategies to recruit diverse leaders. I learned a lot today, and I hope you all did too. I'd like to thank Michael for moderating today's panel. And as a thank you to our panelists, a donation in your names will be made to the Friends of the Windward Wounded Warriors Association, along with a donation to the Schrader Graduate Diversity Scholarship. I'm also honored to be able to present you all with our 39th TechNet Indo-Pacific Challenge coin, and I really appreciate you all being a part of AFCEA Hawaii history.
Thank you.